So, hello Marty, and
Hiya.
let me officially welcome you to the Maintenance Analytics Summit here in Stockholm to its first edition. Before we go on with further questions, can you please tell us more about your background and the company that you're representing?
Yeah, my name is Marty Cochrane. I work at Arundo Analytics as their Director of Solution Architecture. I'm from Ireland, but I've lived in Norway for 6 years. And I mainly come as a software developer and engineer from the utilities sector. So in Ireland, I worked in big coal and oil-powered power stations. And then for 5 years in Norway, I was head of software at a big energy company with renewables, so with hydropower plants and wind and some solar and stuff as well. So that's what made me sort of move into Arundo and all the analytics and stuff that happens there.
Great. So Marty, you would agree that predictive maintenance is lately one of the most talked about topics when it comes to asset management and maintenance in general. And where do you see the biggest challenges when it comes to, because all we want to do is deploy the data into bringing value to maintenance, into becoming data-driven, and that is challenging. What is stopping companies to apply this approach?
I think to me there's two parts. There's actually getting access to that data, which is still kind of incredible since we've been doing this for so long in terms of getting data from assets, but still finding a way to access that data and also store it and maintain it and make sure that it's reliable is one big challenge that we try to solve a lot in Arundo. The next is then what to do with that data. You know, you have this new term that suddenly has popped out, you know, a data scientist. It's happening a lot in universities now. They have dedicated data science courses and things like that at university. And what are these data scientists actually doing with the data? You know, it's very good that they can look at the data, they can do analytics and stuff in the data, but normally after the results are sent in like an email to a manager or something, and really trying to scale those analytics and really make good use out of your data scientist is a real challenge today.
So you work at Arundo. How does Arundo help companies accelerate the development in this area from a solution, a technological perspective?
Yeah, so I think there's a lot of technologies out there that can do, you know, that can get access to your data. So we have the technology that can, like for example, we have an edge agent that lets you get access to your data, stream all of that data from something like a ship if you want. You know, it could be a ship sailing around the world and we can stream all that data coming from the ship. There's similar sort of technologies out there today, but what we try to do in Arundo is we try to make it as simple as possible to get access to data and deploy your models to it straight away. So what typically happens today is organizational structure causes a lot of problems when it comes to this. So say a data scientist wants to build a model, right? And the model is designed to predict a failure in something, but that needs deployed into some sort of a public environment that gets access to data that's streaming across the internet. Well, then you have to get IT involved, and IT have to get some software developers involved, and they need to get some security guys involved to make sure it's all authenticated. And we find today that organizational struggles are nearly the thing that stops a lot of this. So what we've tried to do is build something that just makes it as easy as possible to get access to your data and immediately let data scientists get to work and really get the value out of your data science team.
That's great. Marty, you gave a presentation in the IIoT space titled Edge Analytics and Data Lineage. And you mentioned in it transparency in receiving and trusting the sensor data. And I think it was something that was quite mentioned today during the summit. How important that is?
Yeah, well, once you get to the stage, so people are thinking at the moment, how do they start making decisions on data? But what a lot of people still in that sort of maturity level haven't realized yet is how do you track those decisions then? So later on when you're actually forced to, maybe for governance reasons, have to say why you made a decision based on a certain amount of data, how you can actually track all those transactions and how data kind of mutates across time is something that people are starting to realize now is actually quite important. So if you imagine you have data streaming into something, is running into a model, and that model is saying, you have to do maintenance on this, which is going to cost billions of dollars. How can you later on, 2 years down the line, go back and actually see that decision-making process and see how that data influenced those decisions and things and what data was put into those reports? It's something that we're now starting to see that since you're going into this data-driven world and the world of sort of data-driven analytics, actually, when you have machines kind of making decisions for you, potentially, then it's important to see actually when those decisions were made and how they were made.
Marty, if you would suggest something to those juniors that are implementing this approach, what would that be?
It's a bit tricky because there's so much hype in this space, I think, at the moment. It's easy for me to say not to live up to the hype because I think, quite easily see what's just sort of noise and what's actually true. So I think one thing that's stood us very well in Arundo is our industrial experience. So we're not just a bunch of sort of technology nerds that love technology. We're people that have actually worked in the industry and have felt the pain points. So what we always try to tell our customers is to focus on your use cases. Don't just say, hey, I've heard a lot about blockchain. How can we use blockchain in our company? Actually look at, well, what are we trying to solve? What are your sort of 3 use cases?
Focus on the problem.
Yeah. So when we go into a customer, we try to focus on that. We'd say, okay, well, yes, we can come in and say, let's just add a big, broad data analytics sheet over everything you're doing, but that's not really going to get you what you want. What is it you're trying to achieve here? And trying to find a use case and make it as small as possible and get those small wins and build up to the really cool, big stuff that you dream of. But I think that's very important, just to actually sit down and decide, well, what do we want from this? What are we trying to solve? Have you got a failure that's happened in the past that you would like to try and avoid in the future? If you do, let's take a look at that and see if that could have been avoidable if you take like a more data-driven approach.
So one final question, Marty. We always address this one to our guests. What is the prediction about this in the near future?
I think the near future, within the next year, we're not going to see any huge changes. I think there's going to be more talking about it. There's going to be a lot more people trying to get involved. Like we've seen people now, like milk manufacturers now talking about the digital cow and all this kind of stuff. So I think you're going to hear more and more. But I don't see the technology or anything making a drastic change in the near future. But when you look further than that, I think we'll start to find assets much more automated. And like we're talking about things like determining when ice builds up in a wind turbine. And if you predict that ice is about to build up in a wind turbine, how the wind turbine automatically reacts to that. This is the way a lot of it's going. And I think you'll find a lot more of that automation coming in quite soon, is what I feel.
Marty, thank you very much.
Pleasure.
And thanks to Arundo for being partners to this event. Thank you for being with us.
Great, thank you.